Welcome back to session 9 of Lightening Your Paper Load. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between best practices and next practices, because I typically find that at this particular juncture in this particular conversation, teachers are really feeling daunted by what they've seen while they're assessing student work. And so they'll take home a whole load of papers and they will level those papers and they'll dive into them and they'll start to analyze each of the levels and learn really important things about how they want to help their students move forward. They will typically also reveal sometimes high levels of frustration or overwhelm because they've taught some of the skills that are showing up as concerns, and they're wondering why their kids didn't get it and why they weren't able to apply the lessons that they've taught. There are a variety of best practices inside of the field of writing, and workshop in particular. Best practices like making sure that you're focusing on a learning target or a single teaching point, using mentor text, demonstrating for students what it looks like to perform a specific skill inside of an actual piece of writing, writing beside them, showing them how you do it, letting them look at multiple models and mentor texts, and then giving them the opportunity to try one small bit of something at a time and giving them feedback and asking them to revise. And sometimes they still don't move forward, and that can be incredibly demoralizing when it happens. And it's a common thing. I honestly believe that teaching writing well is one of the most challenging things that we're called upon to do inside of our schools. And so the first thing that I want to reassure you about is the fact that you're kind of not alone in that frustration, and that it really requires years of dedicated practice, if not decades, to really get to a place where we feel good and confident in our teaching skills as teachers of writing. It really is the work of a career. It's not the work of a single day or week or year, or even decade. And so that's the first thing that I want to offer you inside of this week's session. And the second is a variety of tools. Some of them are really traditional in their structure and predictable in their offering. And so you're going to see again in this session the Talking with Writers packet. Inside of that packet, I have these documents called the When You See This, Say This documents. Those evolved out of my assessment work with teachers on the ground. And so I brought groups of teachers together. We looked at narrative writing. We leveled papers. We noticed what was happening with writers and what their strengths and needs were inside of each level. And then we brainstormed interventions, things that we would say in terms of feedback, challenges that we would offer writers, and coaching conversations that we could have with them aligned to very specific targets and needs. We did the same thing with information writing and argument writing. And so the very best of my traditional interventions and bits of feedback, you'll find them inside of that Talking with Writers packet and the If You See This, Say This documents. There are some other things I'm offering you as well. There's a snapshot of the 3 different skill sets that we ask writers to use simultaneously when they're producing something for an audience. In order to write well, we need to be able to produce print and visual information, construct meaning for an audience, and also structure our work well. And we kind of have to do all of those things at the same time in order to help our audience understand the information that we're trying to share with them. I find that it can be very helpful to assess your students' needs and to find out where they're struggling. If it's with meaning and structure, our traditional interventions tend to work. But I find that kids who are print resistant or kids that struggle to produce visual information in the form of print, it requires some atypical interventions in my experience. And so there are some documents here that can help you understand the difference between those 3 meaning-making systems. And then also lower the print barrier just long enough so that kids can work with meaning and kids can play with structure without necessarily getting bogged down by or frozen by the print. Print can create a barrier for writers, and writing is so much more than print. So some of the more atypical interventions that you're going to see in this session focus on integrating making and writing and allowing students to do what I call medium and modality switching. That means that you don't ask kids to produce their writing by using print, but instead you allow them to build or draw or act something out. You allow them to construct something and tinker and play with loose parts and then describe orally what the meaning is or explain what the structure is, and to use visuals for that that don't necessarily have to do with producing print, but that instead can call on other skill sets that they have and allow them to sharpen up those other two domains, the meaning and the structure piece, while maybe relying on you a bit for the print piece of it. When we look at what a balanced literacy block looks like, it usually provides opportunities for what we call shared writing and interactive writing. When we engage with shared writing with students, we're doing heavy modeling for them. And when writing becomes more interactive, we release the pen just enough and at just right moments where students aren't necessarily writing what's easy and they're not writing what's too hard either. We might be doing that a little bit for them so that they can focus on producing the most important print inside of the experience. What you're going to see inside of this session are a set of slides called the Fire Starters. Some of you might be familiar with them because I've shared them on my Facebook group before. You're also going to see a document that will invite you to learn more about using maker moves in the writing workshop. I'm hoping that this session provides a new context for those of you who know a little bit about my passion for integrating making and writing, and maybe even some of you who have started this work on your own. It's not just about integrating STEM into ELA. It's not just about incorporating making in order to engage those kids who hate print but love to build. And it's not about cute, and it's not about fun. It's about understanding that writing includes print, it includes constructing meaning, and it includes playing with structure. And that when kids are print resistant or they're not print comfortable or able to work with it in ways that are really, proficient, oftentimes our perseveration on print prevents them from improving meaning and structure. I'm hoping that while you are applying the best practices that have been provided to you through your curriculum resources and through your professional learning around writer's craft and the process, I'm hoping that you're also willing to consider some next practices that have to do with lowering print barriers. Although this may feel like it has nothing to do with lightening your paper load, it certainly does, because I find that when kids are able to produce writing using mediums and modalities that are considerate of their strengths, you're not toting home as many papers that are so loaded full of errors that you're overwhelmed and struggling to find better interventions for them. So take a look at some of the resources and the materials that are here for you. Reach out to me on Facebook, on Twitter, or through email to talk more. I'm hoping that I can support you through this work and help learn more about your specific needs and interests when it comes to best practices and next practices. Enjoy, everyone.